It's one of the greatest rivalries in international sport, but the Ashes series, which gets underway in Brisbane tomorrow, could see England win the urn in Australia for the first time in 24 years. The Australian team is under increasing pressure to prove its worth, despite injuries, bad form and administrators under fire for scheduling and selection that's left the home side looking less than imposing. Mary Gearan spoke to the coach, who's facing the heat alongside his players.
Oh, to be English, now the Ashes are here. With the fine and careless rapture of the sprinkler dance, as featured in Graham Swan's latest video diary, to be the formed team enjoying itself with a settled lineup, a perhaps unique situation for an English touring side, while in an unhappy identity swap, the Australians seem to be struggling.
Australia seems to have become very disorganised and very unfocused in their approach to the first test. These are the kind of confusions that English cricket has traditionally tied itself in, you know, huge squads and confusion about priorities and players suddenly unavailable at the last moment. But now it's Australia in that situation.
This year, it's not just a tale of how Australia might regain the Ashes, but how the players and cricket's administration are coping with one of the most difficult periods in the team's history. Since Australia lost the Ashes in England last year, it's come away from India with more anguish in the luggage, including a heartbreaking one-wicket loss in Mohali.
There's Ricky Ponting. He'd be very disappointed.
Since then, there's been a constant, corrosive trickle of doubt and critique. Free-form assessments from commentators as well as former superstars.
We're getting better and better. The frustrating part from my point of view, I think, is that the 2 or 3 games that are regularly mentioned are the ones we won by or lost by a whisper.
Last weekend, Tim Nielsen stepped away from what he calls the bubble of international cricket to watch his son's team in the suburbs of Adelaide. These are rare and treasured moments away from a challenging period where, despite the limited power of his position, his head is out to be kicked almost as much as his players.
It's not Tim Nielsen's fault that over the last 2 years, in all brands of cricket, including Australia A, the selectors have chosen 66 different players, suggestive of indecision and inconclusion about who constitutes our best side. But I think, you know, the tradition is that the coach bears some sort of responsibility for the team's performance, and in the event of failure, I think there has to be some sort of examination of both his coaching methods and philosophy.
I hope we don't get too precious. You know, we would like to think they'd support us rather than bag us as such. But in the same breath, sometimes we need a kick in the backside, and we need someone from outside maybe to ask us the question that says, are you doing the right things?
At 42, the former South Australian wicketkeeper is not that much older than some of his players. He now has a former mentor on the selectors panel, the one-time Redbacks coach, Greg Chappell.
Tim's a very diligent, hard-working coach. He understands the game very well. He understands the preparation of players very well. I think he, you know, from that point of view, he brings a lot to the group. I think there's probably a great overestimation on what a coach can do. You know, I don't think there is a magic wand that coaches can wave and make players better players.
Nielsen is an approachable bloke who's flown lower on the radar than most of his predecessors. That changed over the last few days when the English press seized on comments he made in the fierce defence of his players. Signs of weakness and nerves, according to the headlines. Nielsen would see it as loyalty.
I love my boys. I suppose as a coach you throw your heart and soul into your team that you have. And in some regards, you know, when players are moved on, I feel a little bit of a failure in myself because my role is to try and get the very best out of each player you have in your group. So, you know, in a way I question myself regularly, and I'll try not to be too tight in hanging on to these guys if there's issues we need to deal with.
He'll be doing just that after Chappell and his colleagues culled Nathan Horrocks just 5 days out from the first test. The spinner was widely regarded as heartlessly groomed, then doomed.
We might bring up another couple of players if we like.
Beyond both the coach and selectors' control was the schedule that saw a 17-man squad announced with what was supposed to be razzmatazz 10 days before the first test.
The number, it's probably not ideal, I guess.
Cricket Australia decided to hold this selection 10 days out from the Test match, squeezing it in just before the AFL draft to see if they could steal some headlines from it, but all they got was bad publicity, and it was an embarrassment for all concerned. It seems that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand doing, that marketing priorities had usurped the selectors' right to choose whom they please.
It certainly wasn't my idea, and I don't think it was the selection panel's idea. It's big business. Sport these days, and obviously taking every opportunity to promote your sport.
Let the promotion be over and let the Ashes begin. Administrators will be hoping the series' popularity and quality play will outshine the dramas of the last few weeks.
It's intriguingly set up and so much more interesting than it has been over the last decade and a half, watching Australia win so consistently.
The Brisbane Test match is a really important Test match. The team that comes out of there either winning or being on top for the best part of 5 days will take that confidence into the next Test matches in the series.
Let's be competitive, but make sure that we do it in the right way. Let's enjoy winning and make sure we show some grace if we do get beaten. Let's fight inch and nail to the last minute of every game, but once it's done, we go out and we promote it, and we make sure that we touch the people that pay the money to come through the gates, and we make sure that everyone's favourite team is the Australian cricket team.
Mary Gearan reporting.